So, as promised, we are going to be rebuilding the front end of the Prado. This is the right hand side that I have not taken apart yet. Today we are going to take it apart, and within the next few days I am going to replace all the bushings and put everything back together. And I am going to take you with me from the top of my head, because this is the easiest way that I can film this. It is an easy process. You just have to undo bolts. Basically, you will need a few special tools like this puller right here, but you can find this anywhere, and a 35mm socket to undo the axle nut from here. Other than that, it is a simple job, and if you follow along you will be able to do it. Now, as soon as everything is taken apart, the upper ball joint will need a press, and some of the bushings may also need a press. So I am not sure if I am going to do these at home or if I am going to take them at a garage just to unpress them and press the new ones in and put everything back together on my own. If you have a press, this is not going to be an issue. I'm starting off with the small stuff. This is just the bracket that holds the brake line on the control arm. It is a 10mm bolt, and you just remove this, and I think there are two more to remove, just so you can find everything when putting everything back together. Put the bolt back onto the control arm without the bracket in place. There's one more here. You will also need to undo the ABS sensor from the hub. Something I have already done here, because I've already taken apart the other side, is remove the sway bar. You will also need to do that. It is an easy job. You just undo 4 bolts and the sway bar links, and the sway bar should come apart. As you can see, I have left the links connected on the control arm. There is no point removing them. So this is the ABS sensor. Just leave it there for now. The hub inside looks clean, which is a good thing considering all the mud this car has gone through. There's one last bolt for the brake line down in here, and it should be free. The reason I am removing everything here and not just unbolting the brake line itself is so I don't lose the brake fluid, which saves the hassle of bleeding the brakes again. I think this is a different size nut right here. Funny enough, I dropped the socket down in my nuts while saying that. The last nut for the brake line is a 12mm. I think I'm going to leave the caliper on for now, just so it's not dangling in the way, as we might damage the brake line. I'll move on to the steering knuckle right here, and then probably to the hub. This can be a pain sometimes. There it goes. You will need plenty new pins like this one, because we are going to remove a lot of them. There's actually one here as well, but it is missing. I'm not sure why. So you will need to tighten the puller until the rack end pops off. There it goes. So it's off. Be careful with these things, because they can actually pop out with a lot of force, but this one was okay, especially this upper ball joint. But you will see when the time comes for us to take it apart. Now this work, like the bushings and stuff, on a car that is mostly used on the road, it is a relatively rare thing to do. It is a relatively rare thing to wear out, but because this car has been used off-road regularly, and because the bushes are not the original ones, I did have to change them after 6 years. 6 years after I replaced them. It all gets expensive, so if you want to support the channel, you can click the little thanks icon underneath the video. Bit of a shameless plug, as YouTubers like to call it, right there. Anyhow, now there isn't much left actually. We have to remove this, the caliper and the ball joint, and the knuckle should be ready to come off. This right here, most people tend to damage them when they remove them, but it is relatively easy to keep them straight. You just use a very thin screwdriver to start with. You bang it with a hammer and then go to a slightly wider one and a slightly wider one until the thing is off. But I have forgot to bring a hammer, so excuse me for a second. So we are back. This is my best friend Tom, and today he's going to help us remove this cap. So as I said, you basically get the thin screwdriver, stick it in between the cap and the hub, and just start bashing until the cap starts coming off. You want to have the screwdriver completely level with the cap. If it is slightly angled, you will be bending the cap. So you just go around and slowly starts popping off, as you can see. Now we can move on to a slightly thicker screwdriver and repeat the same thing. There it goes. So the GoPro got a bit hot and turned itself off, so I'm going to use the camera for a bit anyway. The camera is better for this section, I think. As you can see, I have jacked the lower control arm up by putting the jack under there. So this has brought the upper ball joint at a much better angle. So we will now undo this bolt and remove the upper ball joint. This bolt is a 19 again. This might be a bit tight because it is taking all the road grime and mud from the tires. Actually it wasn't. If you live somewhere like the UK though, I can imagine that this is going to be pretty hard to take off. And now it's time for the sketchy part, which is pressing this upper ball joint out. I'm going to give it a few hits just to loosen up everything, and then I am going to put the puller. Now the puller is on. These tend to be a bit stiff sometimes, meaning that they need a lot of force to come out. So I am going to stand up, get my face away from this thing, and slowly crank it until it lets go. So I am already putting quite a lot of force here. Now sometimes if you see that you are putting a lot of force and still not coming out, you can give it a few bashes with the hammer on the sides, and that might just be enough to shake it loose. In this case it has shaken other stuff loose, but anyway. There it goes. I was starting to get a bit worried there because this puller is old and the head is completely worn out and I couldn't tighten it anymore. So that's why I went over to the trusty old hammer or Tom. Hello guys, future Theo here. I have jumped ahead in this part of the video because there is something wrong with the GoPro footage. So what I have done here is remove the axle nut, which you will need to push the brakes to do if you do not have power tools. I then removed the lower shock bolt and bolted the 4 bolts that hold the lower bolt joint in place. There is no need to unpress the lower bolt joint, you just remove the 4 bolts under it. Removed the caliper and hanged it on the chassis so I don't put any stress on the brake lines. And then the knuckle was ready to come out. I actually do not think there is a worse smell than the one of diff oil. I absolutely hate it. So, as you can see, we are doing pretty well here. I think I am going to leave the upper control arm last, and I am going to tackle the lower control arm now, which on the other side was a bit of a pain, to be honest, because this bolt right here, the front one, was stuck like you would not believe. I had the Toyota jack in between here pushing on the bolt and it wouldn't come out. So if you find it difficult to remove the front bolt, many of them are like this. But now the front side is, I don't think it's a 22, I think it's larger. No, it is a 22. So right here you just have to undo the outside nut. There's no need to hold the inside one. It is a 22 millimeter. You might want to mark the alignment right here. I am not going to, because I can't be bothered, to be honest, and I might pay for it later, although there is a small mark right there. Anyhow, this is one bolt's out. Time to do the other one. And when I was doing the other side, I had to move the steering rack out of the way, as you can see right here, for in order to be able to remove the nut. It was very annoying, but I have not undone any steering lines, so I did not lose any fluid, which means I'll just have to bolt everything back together. There is no need to bleed the whole system again, but keep in mind that you may need to remove the steering rack in order to remove this bolt, which is very, very annoying. As you can see, it even comes in contact with the rack as it is now. So I've actually gotten quite lucky with this one because it is completely free. As you can see right here, it comes out straight away, which is great news. So this is out. As you can see, it is a bit rusty, so you can imagine how it can get stuck in there, but thankfully this is off. Now the whole lower control arm should come out. Yep, there it goes. So now we are left with the upper control arm to remove, and I was having a quick look in the engine bay and it looks like it's going to be a bit of a pain on this side because the battery is in the way of the bolt. So let's have a look. So this side is a bit more of a pain than this side, where as you can see is much more there's much less stuff over here. So this right here is the bolt we have to remove. I have removed the battery. I'll remove this plastic tray that the battery sits on, and hopefully I can get that bolt out. There are these wires in front, but I might be able to pass it through. Let's see. So this one is a 19. I'm gonna get in between these wires. I'll have to get this out of the way first. So as you can see, this long bolt is now able to come out. This is a long bolt. There it goes. This is what holds the upper control arm of the 90 in place. I'll put everything as it was, just so I don't get confused when I'm putting everything back together. And now it's time to remove the upper control arm. It should just pull off now. Yep. So we have removed everything successfully: the lower control arm, the knuckle, the CV joint, and the upper control arm. Now we will have to press these bushings out of the upper control arm and the lower control arm. So changing the bushings is much easier than some people think. You just get the very useful Toyota jack, you place it in between the two bushings and you just jack it up and it pushes the bushings out. This is nearly out right now, it's not completely out. We'll need some smacking. This is out. As you can see, it is one of those poly bushings. These are horrible. Do not use these on cars like the Land Cruiser. They work in a completely different way than the original ones, and they make the ride harsher and they squeak. So in my opinion, you should only use original bushings or aftermarket ones that work like the original factory Toyota bushing. The original factory Toyota bushing, the movement is in the bushing and not on the arm like it is with this one. Also keep in mind that there are two different part numbers for the front and rear bushings. I could only find original ones for the rear bushings. So I had to use these aftermarket ones for the front. They work in the same way as the Toyota ones, but they are not as good in terms of quality. Thankfully I got these for free, so if they fail I will change them in the future. To get these in, you will need a vise and something to put over it. I will show you how to do it now. And it's in. So you do this for every bushing, and then it's time to put them back on the car. The same is true for the upper control arms, which I have already done, but those are much easier to remove the bushings because they are smaller. The jack won't fit in between those. I took them out with the hammer. If you have a smaller jack, it will also work. Getting the arms back on the car is a simple process. You just line up this arm and pass the huge bolt through from the engine bay. It will require a bit of fiddling around, but it will go inside. Now for the lower control arms, we will line up the control arm. And once that is done, we go over to the alignment bolts. We need to pass this right through here. Putting some grease onto these isn't a bad idea because they get stuck. This should be facing up, not down, and then you just pass the bolt through and go over to the other side, and then you can see the bolt is sticking out. You just put this cap over the bolt, again facing up, and the lower control arm is on. You do the same for the other side as well, obviously, and that's about it. After that, you just hook everything back on the vehicle, the reverse way of how you took it off. It isn't a difficult process, you just have to follow a few steps. It's just bolts and you will be done. I have replaced the upper bolt joints on the knuckles, but I had to take it to a shop to do it because I didn't have a press. So if you want to do it that way, you can just take the knuckle to a shop. They can change the bolt joints for you, and then you can assemble everything back together like I am doing here. I won't film the reassembly because I want to get this thing done before the alignment shops close down, because it is a Friday, so I'm hoping I will have it rolling today. If you have any questions about the reassembly, just leave them in the comment down below and I will reply. But as I said, it should be straightforward. If you've managed to take everything off, you should be able to put everything back on again. If you also take some photos or video while you're taking stuff off, it is a good idea. Just one last thing, do not tighten the shock and the control arm bolts up before you put the vehicle on the ground. So put everything together. The same is true for the upper control arms. Put everything together, put the vehicle under its own weight, and then tighten everything, because this will help the bushes last a bit longer. Other than that, thank you for watching. I hope this video was helpful and I will see you on the next one.